I don't know if all of you in here have had the same opportunity that I've had to get to know Superintendent Newey. This is a man with a vision, and he's wonderful at sharing that vision in a way that each of us can understand how it applies to us and what we can do to move that vision forward for students. It affects every one of us in the daily work that we do. I have been inspired by that vision. We've moved into action, and we've changed a lot of the work that we do in information technology. I am very impressed with our new Assistant Superintendent, John Zurbuchen. This is a man with as much energy as Reid Newey, and will move this work forward in a way that will be exciting for each and every one of us. Without stealing any of the thunder from their presentation, it's going to require a change in the way we do the work that we do. Each one of us, from those who work to make sure our buildings are ready for students, to those of us who work on technology, to especially those of you who sit in a classroom with students. I'm very thankful and appreciative that they've accepted an invitation to address us this morning. I'd like to introduce Superintendent Reid Newey and Assistant Superintendent John Zurbuchen. Thank you.
I appreciate Dwayne and his people. They've done an incredible job. We hope to be inspirational. We hope to be provocative in terms of generating some new thought, and most of all, learning. We hope that you'll learn today. You know, Dwayne talks about vision, you know, and it's kind of a big buzzword in leadership and so forth. And I suppose my vision started at least 20 years ago. I heard a guy named Bill Daggett. You know, he kind of established the rigor and relevance framework, but more than that, Daggett's always been a futurist. And that's kind of his message. He weaves the rigor and relevance framework into it. But since that time, I think I've always kind of had a gnawing, different view of what education should and could be. I've never felt like the 200-year-old model was it. And I think, you know, now more than ever, we've come to a time of convergence that it's possible to really make a significant reformative effort in not eliminating what's good, but doing it better and doing it differently. So anyways, you know, I struggled a little bit for material. And so I thought, I'll just show them some home movies. This is my grandson. He's like, right there, he's like, he gets crazy with his head. He's about 4 months old. He sat up early. You know, he does everything early, just like a grandkid of mine ought to. You know, he loves balls. And we didn't have to teach him that. Just from the moment, you know, I subscribe to loving balls because I've loved them myself. But, you know, he loved balls, and you can see how intrigued he was with that. Let me show you another video.
You're sure that's video?
That's my wife instructing me. Now look at, a couple of things I want to point out. You know, we've gone through a big debate, and the debate's still raging. You know, this technology's killing kids. It's distracting them. Don't introduce that to them. Now, I just got to tell you, we never showed him a cell phone. His dad, my kid, works as a home care RN. He's never had a face-to-face with a doctor on any of his patients. He gets all his assignments on his phone and on his computer, so at times, you know, maybe the kid's seen him doing stuff, but I want you to observe how not necessarily now he's about 9 months old here, he goes right to the cell phone. Now, you might say, well, it's flashier, et cetera, but the thing that's intriguing to me is if you watch his hands, he goes right to hand position. His thumbs are in the right place, and he turns it on immediately. And that has not been taught. So let me show you one more. Watch his hands here. A little bit torn. That's enough. Hey, I got to show you this look at the end, and then we'll move on. Anyways, I show you that for a few reasons, and one, I want you to draw your own conclusions and have it match with your belief system and whatever. But the time has come in education that we have the capabilities to teach in a way that I suggest is intuitive to the way the brain works. If you Google brain versus the computer, there's some awesome comparisons. The computer drops bits of information and then accesses them. Brain does the same thing. It's just a little different process. So I suggest and believe that it's the reason one of the most, if not the most effective way we can reach students today is to access the tools we have that no longer limit the knowledge available. There's a concept called disruptive innovation. I have this paper because I want to read it because it's Clayton Christensen, Harvard professor, has a lot of Utah ties. The definition of disruptive innovation is an innovation that creates a new market and value network and eventually disrupts an existing market and value network, displacing established market-leading firms, products, and alliances. You think about education, and nowhere is there an established market that relies on old thinking and traditional methods than education. You think of Uber. Uber's the largest people-moving organization and owns no taxis. Airbnb is our largest accommodations company and owns no real estate, owns no buildings. Alibaba is the most valued product provider and has no inventory. Facebook, our largest communicator, and has no content. Kickstarter is one of our largest financial providers and has no accumulated capital to provide. Netflix, our largest movie house, doesn't own a building. So that's just some disruption in the industry. This guy, to just give you a local flair and kind of paint the picture, Jeremy Andrus, local guy, he's the guy that did Skull Candy headphones. Ask your kids, they'll know what they are. But that was a disruptive inroad. I read a quote from him is, he looked at headphones and decided I can design these better and just made some minor modifications. Well, Jeremy, I was reading an article on him, and now he owns Traeger grills. And how many own a Traeger? Raise your hand. How many love your Traeger? If you've never eaten anything off, you'll be addicted quick. But anyways, Jeremy talked about in an article about when he bought Traeger, and it was an Oregon company, and he went up there and tried to relocate the company to Utah, and they set an 18-wheeler on fire in the parking lot. The employees did. That's how, because they'd been local, and they're thinking, well, Traeger has exploded the last few years, and it's because of the disruptive nature of Jeremy. And you can see they transformed us into a technology company. Ryan Smith is another multi-million-dollar company that started up. It's Qualtrics. That's their business environment. You can see the guy riding a bike down the middle of the environment. And he asserts every company is a tech company now, or at least needs to be if it doesn't want to get left behind. Let me show you a video real quick.
From a manufacturing standpoint, the way we assemble this car, the way we put it together, all of this is essentially very different from another car. The Model S process stage it all starts with raw material. We have coils of aluminum, different gauges, different types of aluminum, maybe 50, 60 coils. We start the process by uncoiling the coils in a special machine we call blanking machine that allows to flatten the metal first and then cut it into flat pieces. We call them blanks. In addition to traditional blanking tools, we're using laser. And then with these pieces, we feed them to the press lines, these gigantic dies. And the press lines essentially form the panels, boom. We are getting all of the parts necessary to make the body of the vehicle out of those gigantic machines. And then all of these parts, as they are finished, so to speak, are brought to the body shop.
The role of the body center is to take all the stamping panels that we make and we bring all that together in one central location. And that's where we actually put the Model S together. We'll start and we do an underbody, which is the main floor system of the car. And then from there, we'll move to body sides. That's the internal reinforcement as well as the outer skin. And inside the framing area, we take the body sides, the underbody, and the front end of the car, and we actually marriage it all together. One of the most unique things about this body center is we actually have 5 different overall joining methods for the body shell. We use adhesive, we use self-piercing rivets, we have cold metal transfer, conventional resistance welding, as well as a new Delta Spot welding system. When a body leaves the body center, it's actually a full, completed body shell ready to be prepped and painted.
You have a gigantic robot that takes the body and put it into a conveyor. It is conveyed to the paint shop. You have multiple pre-treatment, primer, base coat, clear coat. All of this is supplied with robots that have a special ability to paint in a very clean environment. You get a beautiful painted body that's coming to General Assembly where we have these super elegant robots we call smart cart, where every card is essentially moving through the factory by itself. It follows a magnetic strip, and essentially the card is being assembled from inside out. We're utilizing automation to the fullest. We have a variety of robots from the teeny little ones to huge ones that are able to move the entire body itself. One of the robots that I'm always very impressed to look at is the one that puts the seats inside the Model S. And the same robot is able to change tools, go from a seat handling device to putting the windshield, actually grab the windshield, put some glue around it, and then put the windshield onto the car, as well as do the rear glass of the vehicle. So talk about versatility here.
We have most everything we need right here in-house. We do the majority of our stamping panels ourselves. We have design engineers here at the facility, so we're very nimble and very quick at what we do.
We're living in a time where you being here is critical, and you being able to take the knowledge you get and turn it around for students.
Well, finally tonight,
This is another story just recently.
Driverless cars. Technology now brings us Robo Pizza. Carter Evans shows us how Silicon Valley is reinventing the pie.
This kitchen is where technology and the culinary arts collide. Humans and robots work side by side at Zoom Pizza in Mountain View, California.
And go ahead and place your order. You hear that bell?
That's my pizza?
That's your pizza.
Okay, so let's go check it out.
All right.
Veteran restaurateur Julia Collins founded the delivery-only pizza company with Alex Garden, former president of online gaming company Zynga.
I saw an opportunity to go after the $40 billion domestic delivery pizza market.
And they say they're able to do it cheaper than the competition with help from specially designed robots like Bruno, who lifts the pizza into the oven. These robots squirt tomato sauce and then spread it, but a human still puts on the topping.
This is a step that's going to be automated in March of next year.
And what happens to his job?
Noel's going to be helping us open our next Zoom facility in San Jose.
So you're not worried about losing your job?
Absolutely not.
The company is committed to using robots for repetitive, mundane tasks to eventually move the kitchen staff into the front office and shift focus to what Zoom Pizza considers its marquee innovation.
This is a giant pizza truck.
It is probably the biggest pizza truck ever made.
A truck with more than 50 ovens that cooks pizzas while they're out for delivery using special software.
When we're absolutely certain that you're just a number of minutes away from arriving for that particular cooking, for that type of pizza, the ovens switch on. Wow, it's amazing.
The truck is making test runs right now, but Zoom has already been delivering robotic-made pizzas for months the traditional way.
Honestly, it tastes pretty good. So I've had it once before. The ingredients are all pretty good. I don't feel like crap after eating it. And it comes fast.
Zoom says it can invest some of the money it saves using robots to buy better ingredients.
That's really good.
That's pretty good,
That's
right?
really good, yeah.
It's going to be 170 calories a slice versus what you would see with a competitor at about 320 calories a slice.
So this is almost half the calories?
Almost half the calories, half the fat, half the cholesterol.
Same price, and you made it with robots?
That's right.
A technical triumph any way you slice it. Carter Evans, CBS News, Mountain View, California.
And that's the CBS Weekend News for this Sunday. Later on CBS, 60 Minutes. The news continues now on our 24-hour digital network, CBSN, at cbsnews.com.
Okay, so now Reid and I worked on this a little while, believe it or not, and now I finally got his ulterior motive. There's a good guy, bad guy thing going on here, and I just figured out I was in the bad guy seat. And I'm going, darn it, because, you know, here's Tesla, here's Uber, here's Airbnb, here's all this stuff industry's doing. Well, the question I have for all of us is, okay, so this is happening, you know, we all know that. There's no longer the conversation that technology is changing our lives. It's changed our lives. And the question is how much and how fast. And part of the rub is, so for us here, we're here as educators. So how have we dealt in education with the life of disruption? How have we become Uber? How have we become Tesla? How have we become the pizza company? How have we changed what we've done? Okay, so there's back in the day. For some of us, it's before your day. For others of us, that's probably in our day, and I won't say which of those we are. And I gotta be honest, I'm not used to being the oldest one speaking, My head's not saying I'm the older one, but the rest of me is saying it is. You take a peek, a few years later, there's a classroom, right? Okay, I think you kind of get an idea where I'm going. So you look at these two classrooms, and you're going, there it is. There's how we've disrupted, because we've got, the first two, and you probably would have thought I would have followed up with a couple more contemporary classrooms that looked a whole lot like classrooms that you look at. But the bottom two, it's like, we can feel good. That's disruptive. Okay, but if you look at those classrooms, truly what in those bottom two is really different than the top two, other than there are no kids in them? Really, you look at the classrooms are the same, aren't they? Some just have technology in them, some don't. They face forward. There's very discrete lines. It's clear in all four of those environments, it's clear where the teacher is, right? Teacher's in front. Teacher's in control. Teacher's running the show. Teacher is the sage on the stage. Even though in the bottom two, man, that classroom over on the left, that's kind of cool. We'd love to have laptops on every desk, and wow, it looks like, it's probably a nice touchscreen up there, but does the business of education in those bottom two classrooms change? Does the environment ask it to change? And I'd say it doesn't, because what I would argue, it's an architectural idea. Form follows function, right? Our space reflects what we intend to do. So if our space is set up in such a way that it's straight lines, those lines are saying that there's consistency, there's predictability, there's organization. There's also, to some degree, a lack of freedom. There's a lack of natural collaboration. So I would argue to you that we can talk a lot about, again, the machines, but what we do have to think about is, what does our form tell us about the function that we're trying to create for kids? So again, the argument I'd make to you is, look at your spaces. If you don't have a space, walk through your school. Walk into classrooms. Take a peek what those spaces say about the intention of what we expect the people inside of those spaces to do. And again, this is a technology conference, so we should be talking about the things on the desk. I'm just talking specifically about the space when you walk in. What does it communicate to what you want kids to do? There's a space that's called gray. You'll notice that space says something different about what we're expecting kids to do. All of those spaces are classroom spaces that obviously say something different than the other spaces I showed you. If we are going to change instruction, and believe, this is one of those things that is a core belief of ours, and that is, it's not about the toy, it's about instruction. It's about what we're expecting kids to do. And once we know what we're expecting kids to do and the types of tasks we want them to create, then all the toys, the technology come to support that. The toys don't drive it, because again, in the previous slide, I can show you a great classroom with a bunch of really cool technology in it, but instruction hasn't changed. And student learning and student engagement won't change until instruction changes, and these spaces Speak to change. So what I challenge you to do is to go back and look at your classrooms and say, what does the classroom, just on visual alone, communicate to my students about what they're expected, how they're expected to interact in this space? And another quick little video for you.
Okay, so, these are just some of the companies, some of the sites, some of the various things that our students are participating in, and also that are open source initiatives out there as resource for educators. You look at all of the options, and this is a very small fragment of what is out there. You look at some of these, some of you may be very familiar with them, some of you have used them, Wiki Spaces, Maker Spaces, the Swift Playground with Apple. These are all great innovations that are the reason you're here today. You are the innovators that need to carry this forward, and we rely on to make education what it needs to be for our kids. You look back on the Tesla factory, how does a student, let's take my grandson, class of 2034, how's he going to work where it's all robotics based, yet he knows nothing about coding? Or how to interact with someone in Germany through, digital resources. That's the kind of demands that we can't ignore with how we have to prepare children these days. The access and the ability to do what we do. And, we talk a lot about STEM. And STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. This is David Kelly. He invented the mouse for Apple. He's a professor at Stanford. I would have you write that name down and Google design thinking. And he started a school called the D School, just the letter D, school. And so Google D School K-12 network. Design thinking is about instilling creativity and then taking that in the classroom and teaching students to turn that around. This will give you kind of a perspective on it. It's good because you can see the integration of all aspects of education.
It's really interesting what's happened in the world. We all thought there was always going to be computer science all the time, or that the STEM stuff was going to be the only thing of importance, and everybody was going to be, going to be an engineer or a scientist. And it turns out that as we've gone through things in the D School and started to work on these real problems, that the empathy for the people, the humanities part of every project was the one we were going to come up with our big ideas. So it's not that we don't need humanities. It's the opposite. We expect to get our good ideas from using principles that typical people in the humanities would use. Empathy for people, or anthropology, or understanding philosophically what people care about. They use a process, we call it design thinking. Another way that we describe it is human-centered design. There's certainly lots of people who come up with technical ideas, and then they try to figure out whether people want them or not. And we come into it now and think that the biggest innovations are coming from understanding people and what they value and what's meaningful to them, and then go and try and find a technical solution or a business solution to that. We have a project called Embrace, which is about helping mothers allow their babies who are in rural areas to maintain their body weight before they can get to an incubator if they're underweight, if they're premature. In order to get this to work, we had all the technical problems of getting the paraffin, which is how it holds its weight to be the right temperature and stuff. The engineers in the technical part of the project had a little thermometer on it. The instructions were to heat it to 90 degrees. But they went out and they weren't working, and they couldn't figure out what it was. But one of the anthropologists had been talking to the mother, and the mother said, well, this was in India, and she said, we only heat it up to 70 degrees instead of 90 because Western medicine is so strong. And so that caused us to go back and redesign and change the thermometer to a thing that said, okay, or ready. We had to make it so in a way that fit that culture. The importance of humanities in helping to solve these big problems is surprisingly catching on and more important than I think we ever thought. We thought it was mostly going to be a technical problem to solve a lot of these things, and so every D School team has some humanities person on it. We wouldn't hardly get started doing a project without doing the empathy work that the humanities people do, what we call the human factors people do, to try to understand what's worth working on. So it's been very surprising and heartwarming for the humanities. Their involvement is going to be at the center of all these really interesting world problems. The things that matter are going to have teams that they, in fact, to get into the D School, it's easier to get into a class if you're a humanities major than if you are an engineer or a business person, because we need them on every team, right? And so it's been wonderful to see that empathy and the human side of things has such a prominent role in in the world of, you know, solving these big problems.
Last night, had my daughter's boyfriend. It's hard for me to say that, but that's a whole other thing. So this dude comes over with my daughter, and I've got a Phantom 4 drone, if you know drones, DJI drones. They're sweet, and I've got a Phantom 4, and I haven't really played with it a lot because no one wants to play with it with me in the house. So he was there, so we were able to fly this thing, you know, up over the house and then fly it without seeing it just from the screen. And it's really scary because it's about a $1,000 machine. And my backyard has a bunch of trees in it. We were just flying it with the camera, hoping that as it lands, it wouldn't land in the trees. But it was, so I love toys. Toys are cool. But this piece, as I intimated with the classroom, has nothing to do with toys. Truth of the matter is, what we're talking about, you could actually do without any technology in your room whatsoever. And in truth, many of you have been doing it without technology. Because it ends up being about instruction and what instruction has to do to provide kids with these 21st century skills we always talk about. It's like, what are those skills? Well, I would argue that we're gonna be this guy in the next video. You guys, the reason I say that's us is because we come out of the wave. There is going to be a moment as we change that we're going to feel like we're in the middle of that wave and the water's over us and we're about to die. And not about to die, we are absolutely sure we're going to die. And then at some point, miraculously, we will come out on the other end. And while coming down and in the wave, it's going to be full of anxiety and tension and fear. That adrenaline when you come back on the backside, and all you know, especially those you in the classroom now and coming up here another month, that feeling you get at the end of a day when it's a really good teaching day, you know, that feeling that I've got more energy today at the end of the day than I started the day with. Where'd that come from? You just came down the face. And the question is, what do we do to make sure that at the end we can get out from underneath the face? Here are the things that I would argue the C change. Why did you use C? Well, 7 essential assets. Y'all can read, you can read those as I'm standing here and just looking at the 6 to the 7 that we saw as most essential. The question here with these assets are, every lesson you develop should have these in mind. If every lesson had these components, critical thinking, collaboration, notice it's not just collaboration, it's across networks and leading by example, adaptability, agility, entrepreneurship, effective oral, written, multimedia communication, accessing and analyzing information. It's the old saw, you guys, that we no longer have to be. It's kind of cool. Back in the day, we had to be the person who knew everything about everything when we were standing in front of kids because that's the only way they could get it. Once in a while, we could go to the library and there was more stuff there, but it was our responsibility, frankly, to know everything that kids were about to ask us and to organize experiences so that we could anticipate things kids would do before they did it. And to do that as a good teacher, you had to limit choices for kids because you couldn't know everything about everything, so you had to arrange experiences so that you knew what they were going to do steps 1 through 10, and they all had to do it because it was a good experience. That's how we were all taught. Part of the whole notion of 21st century learning is the fact that kids have to be able to be agile and adapt as they gain more information. They have to know how to analyze and judge that information. And in the end, they have to be able to take a problem, do something with it with other people, collaborate and communicate effectively, and not communicate necessarily the ways we always did, was typically some kind of paper, some kind of worksheet, some kind of thing. They're collaborating, communicating with multimedia devices. If every experience we provided for kids were able to do these things, And again, think about it. You could do all these without a lot of technology, but it would be more difficult. And what technology does is it frees us up to have all the stuff they need in one space. Because you all know they'll find it. They'll find that what they need as fast as Reid's grandchild found that phone and was able to put it in the proper position. And the cool thing about technology, you guys, to me, the most exciting thing, it's not about the toy, it's about the teaching. Teaching is still paramount, teaching is still primary, teaching is still the difference maker. The difference is that teaching has changed in terms of how we provide experiences for kids. And in fact, I would argue that it makes teaching even more essential than it was pre-technology times because of the fact that now we get to guide kids where they need to go. Administrators in the room, that's something for us too, because if we're expecting teachers to treat kids collaboratively and we're expecting teachers to treat kids so that they have multiple ways to solve problems, we have to treat our staffs the same way.
Teaching is now, and your role in making things happen for kids is more critical than ever. We've challenged our administrative team. I personally believe we should never do anything or expect anything from anyone that we don't first do as ourselves and challenge ourselves. First of all, we've challenged our administrative team from the superintendency on down. We've got to adapt and change with the times as well. We've challenged every one of our organizations to be 21st century providers. And our principals are the same way. We've asked them, and that takes money and it takes time, and we're going to get there. We're going to do those supportive physical things, but we're just going to finish up with this last thing from Joe Walsh. But know how critical you are to the great things that happen in Davis School District for kids. We're so happy you're here. This is where it happens in our minds, and whatever we can do to support that, and your principals and all the people that work to help support you in your teaching and learning, we're here for you, and we want to make it happen. We have to make it happen differently for kids. I just firmly believe that. Or, we're reaching a point in the world, I believe, that it's critical because of the way jobs are configured and the demands of the market.
A philosopher who says, as you live your life, it appears to be anarchy and chaos and random events, non-related events smashing into each other and causing this situation, and then this happens and it's overwhelming, and it just looks like, what in the world is going on? And later when you look back at it, it looks like a finely crafted novel. But at the time, it don't.
Now, Joel's been through a few days, but great wisdom there. We love the work you do. We love the things you bring, and we love you and all the students that you serve. We appreciate you being here and hope you have a great conference. Thank you.